of band is this?
Everybody poops sometimes.
Give us the smother.
Wake up, sweetness.
Your first time should be more than special.
I'm in, Savannah said. Good Lord, Gemma.
When a man and a woman, in this case, really, really love each other, what happens is they fuck.
Ooh, hello?
Oh, dang it, I lost my fish.
This next word almost sounds like Quidditch. Quidditch milade Diana Agosiagath an Fiedian.
As much as I love fucking you, sweetness, we stared into each other's eyes whilst I moaned in ecstasy. Having consumed half of the bourbon, I keep saying bourbon. You know, every time I mess up on a word, Stunt Mama just shows up.
She had her seductive smile on her lips.
I said we couldn't have sex. I didn't say anything about everything else. Ew. Happy to help. Biatch. You are the spark of light and the vastness of my night. His note, like a finality to a beautiful, breathtaking song. No idea what you're referring to. Don't you see the halo? Oh, the green screen it's cutting it off because of the. So it's there. You just can't see it. It's right there. I promise. Green screens. What are you gonna do? Anyway, happy St. Patrick's Day. Is this? It's me. It's me. Hi, Tig. Hello Twitch, hello Kick, and hello YouTube. Good to see you. So last stream we attempted the multi-stream with only Twitch and Kick. Hi, Stunt Mama's mama. Yeah, so last time we did Twitch and Kick. Today we're stepping it up a notch and we're doing Twitch, Kick, and YouTube. My first time ever going live on YouTube. It's pretty cool. Good times. Tig, I want to ask why you're still awake, but at the same time, I'm also really glad to see you. So it's kind of a, you know, that's a catch-22 right there. It's not that late. Isn't it like 1 a.m.? And hi, Kay. The Lady K, everybody. Lady K. Oh, it's midnight. Oh, you're only 5 hours ahead? Oh, wait, daylight savings. That's right. Forgot about that. Sorry I missed Thursday night. It was the daughter's fault. It's totally okay. We only got through the first 2 chapters anyway, so not a big deal. And then, of course, we were in Discord and we were reading Fourth Wing in Discord, which I love that book. It's great. I mean, the fall is shaping up to be quite interesting, but, you know, the Fourth Wing is kind of in its own category, if you will. So, I don't know about you all, but I had a productive day. It started out slow, and you know, we've had a sick kid at home for the past few days. He's doing a lot better today. a lot of the medicine and the rest and the hydration, he's getting there. He should be able to go to school tomorrow. But my wife was gone. She was helping a friend move from one place to another. And I ended up, from sitting on the couch and talking with her after she got back, to moving stuff around in our bedroom and then painting. So I went from doing not much to painting. The first coat, all the trim and the first coat is taken care of. We're not going to sleep in there tonight, obviously, because of the paint fumes. It's certainly dry. It just smells, obviously. It smells like paint, funnily enough. And then I'll probably get the second coat tomorrow, because I'll have to see it. I'm hoping I don't need a second coat, but I might. Vincent, what's up, man? How you doing? Good to see you. Glad he's better? Yeah. Yeah. The little tyke. And we're at the point in the school year where if he's out of school, we have to get a doctor's note. He's had too many absences from being ill to where we can't just be like, yeah, he's sick. We have to prove it. So there's that. So yeah. I hope the rest of you have had a fantastic weekend. Tig, it was great to hang out with you in your stream. Did you all get any of those tornadoes in your neck of the woods? Yeah, we didn't get anything here. I don't know about the stunts. No idea. How are you liking Control, Tig, by the way? Is it everything you imagined and more? Here's your puzzle for the evening, by the way. It has nothing to do with St. Patrick's Day, but it does look pretty. So there's that. It's weird. Well, based on the playstyle, I can't say it's a game I would have pegged for you. Not because it's like over-the-shoulder first person or anything. Because you play plenty of games that are that kind of view, but the whole mix of guns and being able to lift things and all that, I wasn't sure if it was your style. Oh, you like the style. The story is just weird. Okay. Fortunately, they didn't hit our county, but I did head to the basement at one point. Oh dear. Save the drama for your llama. No one likes a tornado in their backyard. Or their front yard, for that matter. I don't know if you have a side yard, but wouldn't be welcome there either. Hot. Very tasty, but hot. Holy buckets. They went all around us. My sister made it to her basement only seconds before they got hit. Oh no, I hope she's okay. Is her home damaged? Sheesh. Hogwarts got me into weird fighting. That's true. Yep, it will. With the whole wand and Wingardium Leviosa. So those episodes I've been recording, they're done. It's finished. The project is finished. I've sent off an invoice. I've been paid for my work. It's all over. And I'm kind of sad about it, to be honest. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it's great to see that it's done, in that respect. But it's kind of a bummer that the journey has come to an end. I'm very much looking forward to hearing how the whole thing sounds together, because when I'm recording this script, it's just me talking. I'm not actually having a conversation with somebody, even though the script shows that I'm having a conversation. So I have to pretend like someone's talking to me, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah." So I'm very eager to find out how it all comes together. So that will be cool. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, now I wait for that, and I hope that we can do other projects together in the future, because that would be great. The company / gal that I was hired by was great to work with, very professional, very helpful, gave me some good pointers to help get me to do what she wanted me to do. So in the end, it was top marks, good stuff. All right. On that note, it's time to read a book. Oh wait, I missed something. Every human and beast are fine. They just found out today that the house will likely have to be razed. I'm crushed. It was my parents' house. Oh no. What do you mean by raised? That doesn't sound good. But what does that actually mean? That's so sad, but I'm glad everyone's safe. Been seeing all the damage from the tornadoes on Facebook and the news. Torn down and rebuilt? Oh, that stinks. I'm sorry. Especially when you have a home like that has so much, history and so many memories in it. I'm really sorry to hear that. And I'm gonna try to stop yawning. All right. But after a day like today, I deserve a yawn or two. I'm just gonna say that. I worked hard today, okay? I really did. Ladies and gentlemen, !fall. This book was written by 2 authors. Get my yawning under control. We're going to start off with chapter 3, and basically what we learned about from the back cover, which if you do !fall and check the link, you can read the back cover for yourself if you wish, but everything on the back cover has basically started to happen. Just to give you a kind of a brief synopsis of the first 2 chapters. Our detective, also named Jason, oddly enough, went in with his team to breach. They had an informant because of this drug, the splice drug, SPLICE, and the informant flipped on them. He tried to run, and it ended up in this big battle. Shots were fired, and then they go to investigate the main place that they were trying to get to, and they find this gruesome crime scene. They don't even know how many different bodies are there. Which is basically what the back says. There's a gruesome murder. The only thing that we haven't learned about yet is the missing child. We just know that there's going to be a missing child because it says it right here. A gruesome murder, a missing child. A society that doesn't care. So, we've got the gruesome murder. We know about the drug, the splice. And now we're going to see what happens, okay? And I apologize if I'm really sniffly or if I'm taking extra sips, because with my kid getting sick, I'm starting to get sick. So I'm doing what I can to kind of stifle that, but you know how it goes. We share everything. All right. Serious. Page 27. Chapter 3. Jason made the trek back down to the basement and pulled his gear off as he entered the bar proper. He saw the two officers who had made the discovery being seen to by medics, blankets draped over their shoulders to treat their shock, and oxygen masks on their faces to help calm them down. Take Airborne? Oh, I have some. In fact, I only have one tablet left. I need to get more. Chief of Detectives Alice Swan stood in the middle of the room, indifferent to the people attempting to work around her. Her UV gear was immaculate and polished, unsullied by frequent use and lacking the faded haze of direct sun exposure that marked every other officer's gear in the room. Her crystal-clear headgear dangled from a hook on a pristine belt. Jason noted the contempt on her face as she scanned the room and pulled one of her gloves off, one finger at a time. He guessed that she typically didn't frequent establishments such as this one. He couldn't even remember a time when she had been in the field, let alone in the gaps. Is this just another one of her drive-bys? Or did Belford already tattle? He felt like he was mentally pulling on armor as he approached her. "Chief," Jason said as he approached. He extended his hand. She glanced at it, hesitated for the briefest of moments, and placed her uncalloused hand in his, shaking it once and withdrawing it quickly. Doesn't sound like this chief gets her hands dirty. "Lieutenant," she said after regarding him with cold eyes. "Looks like you found yet another way to bungle this investigation." Jason ignored the comment. "I actually just put in the recall request to bring you up to speed. We weren't expecting you on scene." She continued to scan the room, looking over him, and Jason noted that she never made direct eye contact with him. "Yes, well, this was supposed to be a milestone operation, and quite frankly, I needed to see the results for myself. I see you didn't send a TAC team in." Jason knew she was trying to bait him into an argument, and hit back the first words that came to mind. "No, ma'am, I deemed it an unnecessary risk to the team, and to the people here." "You mean you made it all about you?" she said. "No, ma'am. I was thinking of the community and the safety of my team." No, she said, waving a finger. "If it wasn't a question, it wasn't a question, and the informant escaped." Again, "No, ma'am," Jason said, and he felt the edge of heat in his words. He battled back the anger in his tone. "The suspect attempted to escape, and we apprehended him a few miles from here." "So you endangered the neighborhood by engaging in a pursuit with a dangerous criminal?" He's not going to win this argument, obviously. Jason knew that no matter what he said or what decisions he had made, Swan was going to continue to play contrarian with him. Jason felt a new wave of exhaustion wash over him at the thought of having to repeat this game again. "The real concern," Jason said, changing the subject, "are the bodies we found in the lab." Swan sniffed. "Why is that a concern? A few more dead blister-backed splice dealers make the world safer." Jason heard the brief pause in conversations around the room, with the racial epithet thrown around as casually as Swan used it, like everyone collectively sucked in a breath and held it. The discomfort was palpable, but Swan showed no sign of noticing. I shouldn't have to have this conversation again. Jason tamed his initial reflex, Les's words ringing in his ears. He was pretty sure taking the same tact with Swan as with Belford would yield very different results, ones with zero chance of ending well for him or the team. Jason stepped close so that only Swan could hear him. Ma'am, please don't use that term. What term? Jason saw her face become a picture of innocence. Ma'am, you know what term I'm talking about. Please don't use it. I just had to have a conversation with Belford about it. She's going to find out anyway. Might as well get ahead of it. Swan answered him in an equally quiet tone, almost whispering in his ear. Or what? He stared straight ahead. I'm not asking. He took a step back and stared directly into her eyes. She finally met his gaze, her eyes afire and defiant. The reason it's a concern, he said, turning the conversation back to the investigation but not breaking eye contact, is how they were killed. The bodies were completely dismembered and stacked in a pile. If you want, I can show you the scene. Swan finally broke eye contact. She turned on her heel and started towards the door. No, that won't be necessary. Just have your completed reports to my office by the end of the day. I'll bring Homicide up to speed as well and send you their initial thoughts, Jason said to her back. Swan paused and looked over her shoulder. Oh, no, that won't be necessary. Her thin lips contorted into a cruel, lopsided smile. This is your crime scene, your investigation. The bodies are on your ledger, not Homicide's. This is on you to clear. Jason felt his heart leap into his throat. Ma'am, we're in the middle of a major investigation, and if we have to clear multiple Homicide on top of that, it will... Swan turned and was back in Jason's face with 2 quick strides. We'll give you enough rope to hang yourself, she hissed. You were never qualified for this position. You were a diversity hire, something to make the department look all nice and inclusive. Look, we have a gapper in charge of clearing the gaps of Splice. You'll fail, and I'll finally be able to remove the task force from you and give it to someone better qualified. Someone with a more desirable background. Jason felt the blood rush to his face and could hear his heart pounding in his ears. He schooled his hands to remain unclenched. What? Swan goaded. Nothing? Jason bit back all the words he wanted to say, words he knew he would never be able to take back. He would be right. He knew it at his core, but he also knew that winning the battle would have consequences. He visualized all of the outcomes of winning the confrontation in front of him, and all of them led to Swan removing him from command, punishing everyone on the task force with career-ending assignments like the pawn shop unit and the morgue unit, and the investigation being mothballed. You can't win the fight. Stay in the war. She spun on her heel again and walked towards the door, pulling on her headgear. Oh, there's a press conference in 5 days about the task force's investigation. No need for you to attend. I'll bring them up to speed with any developments. I'll be sure to communicate your contributions. The door swung shut behind Chief of Detective Swan, and the room was left in impotent silence. She's great. Wow. God's damn glasshead, Les said, startling Jason. He hadn't heard his partner approach. Jason flinched. You know how I feel about that term. Les shrugged. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If we're trading old idioms, the problem with an eye for an eye is that eventually everyone goes blind. Jason countered. Les grunted. Not to put more on your plate, but I've got someone you should speak with. Who? Jason asked as he looked around the room. Amidst the uniformed cops and the bar patrons who were still giving statements, Jason clocked someone new. A woman with a tear-streaked face. You should talk to her, Les said. Les, Swan just dumped the homicides on us on top of everything else. I don't have time to deal with civilian complaints. Just... Les didn't finish the sentence, but gestured toward the woman. Jason sighed and approached the woman, dreading the conversation with each step. Public relations wasn't his thing. The woman seemed to have picked up on his discomfort, and she raised her hands, palms out and crossed in front of her chest. The Gapper sign for peace, or peace upon you, depending on the neighborhood. Lieutenant Thane? Detective Caporelli told me you might be able to help me. Okay. May I have your name? Jessica. Jessica Klein. Sir. Jessie. Her voice trembled on the edge of tears. Jason felt his resolve to extricate himself from the situation as quickly as possible quaver, and motioned to one of the bar stools. Jessie sat back down. Jason sat next to her and finally got a good look at her. The woman was slight, on the side of gaunt, and looked tired, but pretty as well. She had fine lines around her eyes that made her appear older, but he figured she was somewhere in her early 30s. And how can I help? It's my son, Marcus, Jessie started and choked back a sob. She took a slow breath and let it out. Marcus has gone missing. Jason opened and closed his mouth a few times, trying to figure out where to start without insulting the woman. I'm, not sure how I can help with that. You'll want to file a report with missing persons. We live upstairs, she said quickly, cutting him off. And no one here ever gets help when they call. They just tend to one of those damn drones. I want to talk to a real person. This is my son, and I don't want this handled by some automated system. Jason felt his stomach drop to his feet, and old memories tried to assert themselves. Jason tamped them back down to stay in the present. That's why Les wanted me to talk to her. Okay, when did he go missing? He asked. Today, this morning, she said, and started gaining momentum, her voice rising in pitch with each word. I know, you're going to tell me that he's probably out with friends or that he'll turn up, and then I need to wait 24 hours before I report him missing. That's not true, ma'am, Jason interrupted. You can report someone missing right away, but before you do, is it possible that he's just out with his friends? Jason winced as he asked that question, hating it in equal measure that he had to ask, and that he actually did. No, she snapped back. I already asked all of his friends in the building, and they haven't seen him either. This is exactly why I didn't want to deal with a drone, because of the stupid questions like this. Jason held up his hands. I'm sorry, I really am. I believe you, it's just that these are questions that we need to ask to eliminate the possibilities, okay? So, what happened? When did you notice he was gone? Jessie took a deep breath and let it out, and she seemed to calm down a notch. I left for work at 7:30, I think, this morning. He leaves at 8 and walks himself to school and texts me when he gets there. But he didn't this morning. And I called the school, but they said he didn't show. So I left work, but my boss said if I didn't come back, he would fire me. Oh gods, I was supposed to be there 30 minutes ago. Tears welled up in her eyes. Jason put a hand on her shoulder and squeezed, hoping it was reassuring. We'll send an officer with you to speak to your boss when we're done, if you want. But I don't think you should go in tonight, okay? Take the night off. I'll give him a call tomorrow and see what I can do. She breathed in ragged breath and nodded. Okay. So, he didn't show up to school. Then what? Jason asked. Then I called the police. The tears flowed anew onto her face. One of those stupid drones showed up to ask questions. But then it just flew off and I found a number for missing persons, so I called them. But they said I couldn't do anything until he's been gone for 24 hours. Then started going on about him probably having run away. But I know that's not what happened. I need someone to listen. Someone to care. A familiar pain struck Jason in the chest. The memory of him talking to a detective in a brown suit and mismatched socks. Of the detective tapping on his notepad with his pencil but not writing anything down. The same explanations, the same tired responses to questions, the same inaction, and eventually the news that no parent or sibling or best friend wants to hear from the same disaffected lump of a man who never wrote a single note. A monotone speech given, and a family and friends left to pick up the pieces. Jason pulled out his phone and opened up a new case file. I don't know how much I can do, he said as he entered the details she had already supplied him with, but whatever I can do, I will. Do you have a recent picture of him? Jessie nodded and pulled one up on her phone. Jason pulled the photo onto his and put it in the file. He was making more notes when he noticed an officer standing in his peripheral, politely waiting but trying to get his attention. I'm sorry to interrupt, sir, the officer said. The medical unit just sent over a car? Jason nodded towards the door that led to the top floor. Tell them it's down there, and give them a heads up about what they'll see. The officer cleared their throat. Lieutenant, they are here for you. Something about a mandatory physical for you to be cleared to be in the field? Jason caught himself grinding his teeth and willed himself to stop. Right. Tell them I'll be there in a minute. He turned back to Jessie. Miss Klein, I'm going to get as much information as I can right now, and I'll follow up with you if I have any other questions. I promise. Here's my number in case you need to get in touch with me directly, okay? He pushed his number to her phone. Jessie nodded, wiping tears from her face. Thank you. Les escorted the woman out, and Jason signaled for Nagayan. Hey, first up, do we have anything from the birds that shows our perp getting away on the roofs? He asked. She queued up the footage from the raid. This is what we got. The top-down video showed a clear view of the rooftops. After a moment of nothing moving, a fire door burst open and 5 men in various states of dress for being outside sprinted away in different directions. Jason spotted 2 not wearing any gear that he guessed were the ones that didn't make it. The others already had their masks up. The only identifying feature he could see was that one was wearing a red jacket that looked to be some kind of design in black on black, though he couldn't make out what it was from that angle. Another moment later, and all 5 were out of frame. Time passed, and no one else exited until a few uniformed officers stepped out onto the roof in pursuit. Well, it's a start, I guess, he said. So, random question. Can you pull up the drone footage for this location from 8 this morning? The guy pulled out her tablet and searched for the footage. A few taps later, and a slowly panning overhead view of the building filled the screen. When is this? Jason asked. The guy checked the timestamp. 7:45 this morning. Okay, move forward to 8, Jason said. He was welcoming the distraction from the carnage just a few floors above. What are we looking for? Jason showed the guy in the picture of Marcus Klein. This kid. Leaves for school at 8, but he never showed up. I'm hoping we can pick him up on surveillance and see where he went. The guy tapped on the screen, and the video moved into fast forward. The image circled around the building in a lazy loop, then veered off to the left and started tracking a different block. What was that? Jason asked. What happened there? The guy tapped on the screen some more. Looks like it was diverted to an emergency call. I thought that drone was tasked to us, Jason said. We were on an active op. It shouldn't have been in the queue for redivert. The guy shrugged. It was supposed to stay on the location, but I honestly don't know what happened there. Maybe too many calls came in? That could override the redivert status and requeue it. Jason huffed. Were there any other birds in the area that might have caught our scene? The guy searched through the drone listing and pulled up another. It took Jason a moment to recognize the location, despite the coordinates displayed on the heads-up display. It was 1 block over, but angled so it caught Jason's car parked in front of the bar in the corner of the screen. This is from about the same time, the guy said. This is one that was in the area, not tasked to us. She touched the screen and fast-forwarded. The drone continued in its lazy circle, then veered off, the heads-up display showing an alert that it had been diverted for another emergency call. That one too? What the hell happened? Jason asked. The guy continued to scroll through the drone options. Not sure, Lou. Looks like a bunch of calls came in, and all of the drones in the area were diverted for first response. Jason shook his head. So there were no birds on the location at all when the kid went missing. Looks that way. I'll keep looking, but I wouldn't hold out much hope on that end. Jason cursed under his breath. It can never be easy, can it? There's a break in the story, which, because we're dealing with this genetically modifying drug. The break in the story looks like a gene thing. I forget what they call them. Strand. Gene strand. I'm fine. I can do this. I need tea though. Oh. It's so good. Tasty. All right. We're on page 38, by the way. Try as he might, Jason couldn't keep his leg from bouncing. He couldn't contain the urge to move whenever he was in a doctor's office. That his boss had just chewed him out didn't help. I hate having to do this, he texted his wife. I know, heart, Amira replied. The analog clock on the wall ticked away the seconds, and Jason read the tired informational posters on the wall again as he idly scratched at the tape and the gauze of his arm from the blood draw. He shifted and tried to draw the paper gown around him to reduce the draft, raising goosebumps on his back, but he only succeeded in somehow making it cover even less. Why do they keep the office at subarctic temperatures? The reply dots flashed on the screen and were replaced by, because they know how much it bothers you. He heard footsteps approach and pause outside the exam room door. Then a quiet knock before Dr. Mizriak stepped in and shut the door behind her. Kind eyes peered at him through the horn-rimmed glasses, and were it not for her steel gray hair pulled up in a tight bun, Jason would have sworn she was no older than him. Back again, she said with a smile and sat on the wheeled stool in front of the exam table. Yeah, you know the wow, blah blah blah. Yeah, you know the department, he said. Always worried. The doctor snorted. About lawsuits? Okay, so what is it this time? Exposure to drug manufacturing fumes? Stabbed in the ass by an amped up pimp? That happened one time, Jason replied. No, this time was just a mundane fight. The doctor looked at him over the rims of her glasses with a look he knew all too well. A fight with someone spliced up on something new. She continued to stare. And there was blood from them that got on me. There we go, she said and typed notes into the chart on her pad. She studied him in silence. What's bothering you? A stack of bodies? Nothing. Bullshit. Really? Nothing, Jason said. Today was just a lot. Well, keeping it all bottled up is definitely the healthy way to deal with it. I'm fine, he said, and realized too late that it came out too harshly. I will be fine. I feel great. Just want to get this over with. No offense. Then this won't take long, she said. She put her pad down and pulled on exam gloves. Can't be too careful, especially with someone with your condition. Jason sighed. I don't have a condition. Dr. Mizriak started palpitating the glands around his neck and shoulders. You understand that Hoekern syndrome doesn't go away, right? It only goes into a remission. If it were to flare back up... Jason remained as still as he could for the exam. They cured me of that years ago, I told you that. I tell you that every time. She took the orthoscope off the wall and examined his eyes. And every time I tell you that it was an experimental gene therapy, Treatment that we think put your Horcrim syndrome into a permanent remission. We need to keep watch for any unknown side effects and to see what the long-term effects of the treatment are. I haven't had a flare-up since I was 13, Jason said. I'm in the best shape of my life, and I feel great. She peered up his nostrils with the device. Absence of proof is not proof of absence. Open your mouth. Jason did as instructed, and she completed her exam. Well, Jason asked. Based on your blood work and the exam, you're fine, Dr. Mizriak said. You're cleared to go back to work. Great, Jason said and hopped off the table. He grabbed his folded pants and pulled them on under the gown. The doctor sighed as she typed more notes into her pad. You never seem to grasp your import to medical research. The combination of Recombinix and gene therapies you went through was groundbreaking, but we still don't know those long-term outlook of the treatment. We don't completely understand the mechanism of how it worked, so that means we can't predict what will happen a year or 5 years from now, or what outside factors could interact with your biology. Jason pulled on his shirt. Yeah, I know, he said, understanding where she was coming from. It's just, I spent most of my childhood being poked and prodded. When I actually had the energy to play with other kids, it was a challenge just to keep up. Keeping my mind on a single task was near impossible, and I had to spend so much time just to keep up in school. He pulled on and laced up his boots. I get that the science is important, and I want this opportunity for every kid that wasn't born perfect, but you want to go outside and play. Dr. Mizriak put her pad down. I understand. You're still making up for lost time. Jason immediately felt a pang of shame at the way she phrased it, even though he didn't direct any judgment in her tone. Yeah, I guess. A little. He pulled on some of his UV gear. Look, I need to have a better attitude about this. You're right. She looked over her rims again. And no one is born perfect. Don't ever think that. A familiar knot in Jason's chest, one that crept in from time to time, lessened with the doctor's words. You're right. Again. There you go, she said, punctuating the last word with a tap of her pad and set it down. Progress. Now, get out. I have other patients to see. Jason left the office with mixed emotions. The pangs of guilt over his selfishness of his time over a 30-minute checkup mingled with the catharsis of knowing he was still healthy and the anticipation of getting back to work, of untangling the knot of splice trafficking. Overall of it was the... What? Sorry, the sentence is throwing me for a loop here. Over all of it was the pall cast by Swan and her impending press conference. Maybe that's supposed to be pull? Either way, his boss is going to have a press conference. Hey, Rhino. What's up, man? How you doing? How's the new channel going? Seems to be rocking and rolling every time I'm in there, which is great news. "5 days to wrap up an 18-month investigation and multiple homicides. She really wants this to fail. Wants me to fail. Despair tried to swarm its way into Jason's mood, but it was met with a wall of determination. His train of thought carried him to the waiting car without him realizing it, and he was jarred from his contemplation when his phone rang. The Gaian's name flashed on the screen. He tapped on his earpiece. Thane. Hey, Lou, the Gaian said, her excitement evident in her first two words. You better get back to the bar, like pronto. Everything okay? You have to see for yourself. You're going to love it. I'll be there in 20. I just got back in town from a market job, so just resting up. You came to the right place. Resting up is pretty much what we do here. And there's a puzzle, if you want to do a puzzle. The front of the bar was a sea of squad cars and flashing lights. Yellow police tape cordoned off the front facade. A few camera crews from the local news piloted their drones around, trying to get a peek at something they could report on the 6 o'clock news. Les was waiting for Jason at the front door. He opened the door and they both stepped inside. Coolers were sitting on a rickety old table, filling up every square inch of the tabletop. We found more, the Gaian said, hidden all over the place up there. The Gaian pulled one top off at a time and revealed the treasure within. Each one was filled to the brim with splice ampoules. Verga, Les said quietly. Jason leaned over and tried to count how many doses of the golden liquid were there, but quickly lost count. This has got to be $10 million worth, Jason said in the same reverent tone. The Gaian awkwardly signed ecstatic. Try closer to 200 million, boss. Jason felt his face go numb and gawked, forgetting completely that no one could see his expression. How do you figure? It's uncut, boss, the Gaian said, the ear-to-ear grin hidden under her gear plainly evident in her tone. This is the pure, right out of the cooker shit. You just took down the mother lode. Silence overtook the room, but Jason had zero doubt that all of them, every cop in the room, shared the same stupid grin. Jason snapped himself back to reality, but couldn't erase his smile. Okay, I want this inventoried and inventoried again. None of it goes unaccounted for. No one is left alone with it. Everything is above board, start to finish. We need to pull every scrap of paper related to this property to determine who the actual owner is. Let's get to work. And that was chapter 3. Ba-da-ba. Oh, my precious tea. Actually, sure don't. Never mind. Tea it is. Oh. It hits the spot every time. So soothing. For an old soul like mine. So, this book doesn't actually have a table of contents in the front, but we do know that the book has 26 chapters and goes to 326 pages. So, there you go. I'm having a grasshopper cocktail, tradition in our house for St. Paddy's Day. Ooh. And do tell, what is in this grasshopper cocktail? I'm quite curious. Honestly, if it wasn't for watching people's streams on and off today, I would have completely forgotten that it's St. Paddy's Day. I haven't left the house today. I haven't gone anywhere. Creme de menthe, creme de coca, and heavy cream. I have no idea. Oh, cream. Oh my god. It's fine. Or no, is it creme? I don't know what those are. Mint, cocoa, and cream? Heavy cream? Is that what that is? If that's what it is, it sounds really good. You might have to give me the ingredients and instructions on how to make this drink. Creme. Creme de coco. French. De liqueurs. Well, that is lovely. You're having French stuff on an Irish day. I got no words. I'm gonna enjoy some French things on an Irish day. That makes complete sense, Stepmama's mama. Complete sense. It's green. It's the thought that counts. Oh, God. You make me laugh, you know that? Gosh, I miss your face. I need a Stepmama's mama's hug every now and again, you know what I mean? Oh, God, that's good. That made me chuckle. I appreciate that. Oh, God. Oh, that's funny. You always have hugs ready? I know. I know. All right. How about we do another chapter? There's only 26 chapters in this book, but each chapter is of a decent length, which is why I'm trying to read them a little bit faster than I would in other books that we've read, just because I don't want it to feel like it's dragging too much, if that makes sense. Not that the story's dragging, I just don't want to make myself seem like I'm dragging because of how long the chapters are. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, chapter 4, page 44, so all the fours. The Alexei Stone Foundation Gala was well underway. Months of meticulous planning had gone into it. Sponsors were courted, vendors were booked, and attendees with bottomless bank accounts were wooed. Woo. Every detail had been gone over. Every detail had been gone over with a fine tooth comb via binders and spreadsheets that had taken over Jason and Amira's dining room table little by little, until they were eating their meals at the sink or hovering over their seating chart. So, Of course, the moment the doors opened for the big event, the wheels came off the wagon. Vendors were late, sponsored had forgotten their banners, attendees showed up early. Years of being together meant he knew her ticks and tells, and stress was pouring off his wife through her body language. He ached to help her, to take on some of that burden, but this fundraiser, the foundation, was her baby, and event planning was not his forte. If she needed his help, he knew she would ask. Smart man right there. But his thoughts drifted to his day. A man with no UV gear ran for 2 miles in direct sunlight. Swan's rampant bigotry and her ultimatum. The bodies stacked like ragged and bloody cordwood. A career-making splice seizure. Jason resisted the urge to get another bourbon. I did it again. Thankfully, Stuntmama's not here. Bourbon. It's spelled bourbon, but it said bourbon. Anyway, resisted the urge to get another bourbon from the bar. He had seen what hiding problems at the bottom of a bottle did to his father-in-law. When they started getting serious, he swore that he wouldn't put his wife through the same thing. At the time, it seemed like an easy promise to make. As best he could recall, it had been the most stressful day of his career. He started to understand the internal reasoning that could make it harder to keep that promise. It was like poking an open wound, causing a shock of pain and involuntary recoil whenever touched. I swear I can read words. Generally, after work, he would cook a meal for Amir and himself and go over the investigation details in his mind, mentally categorizing any new information, indexing it with what they already knew, and reviewing the big picture to see how the new information changed the landscape of the overall case, and started thinking about the new deployments or investigative avenues that he would pitch to the team the following morning. It usually let him I'm fine. It usually let him let go of the day and keep his work from invading his personal life. It was a challenge he saw other cops struggle with, but one he had felt he had mastered. The same ritual that had brought him comfort and focus now only served to vividly revisit the scene in his mind. Every detail of the day was accompanied by a snapshot of butchery, of a ticking clock. He knew he needed time to come to terms with a level of savagery that he had never borne witness to before, that he didn't know was possible. Time for his brain to process it to a point where it stopped babbling incoherently in terror and didn't send a shock of adrenaline through his system. Hi, Killa. Hi. How you doing? That time would need to be later, however. Tonight was Amira's night. Tonight was for Alexi's memory. Jason saw that she had finally broken away from putting out fires and was getting a chance to network with the guests. He caught his wife's eye over the shoulder of one of the donors she was chatting up. She smiled slightly and brushed a lock of hair from behind her ear without missing a beat in the conversation. I'm good, back from Michigan to Columbus. I go home on Thursday. Whew. Alright then. Wait, you were in Michigan, now you're back in Columbus? You go to Columbus a lot. It's super. What's up, dude? How you doing, sir? Another one of the Broalition. You went to Michigan for the weekend. Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, I hope that was fun. You're doing good? That's great. I'm glad. Glad to hear it. Jason put his drink down on one of the many high-top tables, tastefully scattered about the museum lobby, and wove in between the groups of donors and attendees. Careful not to bump into anyone and jostle their drinks, and I don't know what that is. Anyway, jostle their drinks or accidentally knock over a server delivering pass hors d'oeuvres, and hovered just behind the donor to not interrupt the conversation. Oh, Super's getting in on the puzzle. It's a good one, Super. It's very calming. And we're very excited to see the next steps, the donor said, gesturing with his half-filled glass. We are too, Amira replied, pushing another lock of hair behind her ear. We're hoping to finally expand the scholarship program into the entire school district this year and increase the number of recipients. The money we're raising tonight will go a long way to level the playing field for many kids. The donor sipped his drink and clumsily signaled a waiter for a refill. Yes, well, it's nice to see the money being put to such effective use. Which reminds me, I was meaning to ask you about the plans for the future marketing efforts and how to best allocate funds for a more public reach. Jason stepped around the bespoke suited man and sidled up to his wife. She slid her arm into Jason's and felt the familiar tingle of electricity from her touch, the same warm feeling in his chest from when she grabbed his hand for the first time in a darkened movie theater. I'm so sorry. I meant to introduce you sooner. This is my husband, Jason. Ah, Jason. Glad to finally put a face to the name. Bob Roberts with Hecht Trust. Bob smiled a practiced, if not entirely sincere smile, switched his glass to his left hand, and extended his right towards Jason, who took it into his own. Bob's callus-free hand was cold and clammy from the drink, and it felt to Jason like gripping a damp, limp fish. I've never shaken hands with a damp, limp fish, but I can only imagine it's gross. Likewise, Jason said, returning the smile with the same sincerity. Sorry to steal her away, but I have someone I need to introduce her to before they leave. Ah, of course, Bob replied and turned back to Amira, his eyes wandering below her chin for slightly longer than Jason was comfortable with. Let's get something on the calendar to continue the conversation. I'll have someone reach out, Amira said. Bob winced, and Jason realized he had locked down on his hand in a vice grip, Bob's knuckles turning white underneath, the sincere smile still plastered on Jason's face. Sorry, Jason said, releasing the man's hand. Quite the grip there, Bob said, a nervous twitter in his voice as he superstitiously rubbed the circulation back into his fingers. Yeah, Jason said, turning as Amira gently guided him away. Too many years of jujitsu, I guess. Have a nice night. He leaned in close to Amira and whispered, Sorry, you made the sign. I thought I was rescuing you. Several paces later, she said in a low tone only for Jason's ears, Is he still looking? Jason glanced nonchalantly over his shoulder. Nope, he's already chewing someone else's ear off. Amira's shoulders relaxed as she strolled through the room. Thank God. They're new donors, and I know I need to chat them up, and having them on board is a huge win for the Foundation. But, dear Lord, I was giving you the sign for like 5 minutes. A humorous snort escaped Jason's nose. Is his name really Bob Roberts? As in, Robert Roberts? He asked quietly, their conversation easily masked by the white noise of conversation and live music. The man's so nice they named him twice. She shrugged her pashmina over. Oh, she shrugged her pashmina over her shoulders. And he definitely had a problem maintaining eye contact, and he wasn't even subtle about it. I thought the asshole like that had died out. You want me to go talk to him? Jason growled in a half-joking, half-not tone. I mean, the dress is hot, but still. Amira rolled her eyes. Great. Hot is exactly what I'm going for at a charity fundraiser with the who's who's of the city. She sighed and smiled. I'm chalking it up to him having had too much to drink. If it's a chronic thing, I'll take care of it. Jason chuckled. Yeah, I don't want to see him. He'd have an easier time with me. Amira feigned a look of ignorance and innocence. I have no idea what you're talking about. I would just talk to him. I seem to remember you nearly twisting a guy's arm off for touching your butt at a bar. Amira scoffed, again with an air of put-upon incredulity. That was in college. I know, Jason said, putting his arm around her waist, pulling her close to him, and kissing her head. You were more reasonable then. She returned the gesture with an elbow to his rib and a kiss on the cheek. She made eye contact and tilted her head. Are you okay? Yeah, he replied a little too quickly. I mean, I will be. I'll be okay. Her mouth pursed up to one side as she studied him. He knew this look. It was the look she gave him when she knew there was more to the story. It wasn't accusing him of anything, just a tic she had when she was concerned and frustrated. Seriously, he rubbed her arms. She nodded slightly, satisfied. Amira, darling, a sing-song voice called out. Hi, Mama's House Gaming. Good to see you again. Oh, don't worry. You're on your you time, you know what I mean? You're on you time. A lithe woman who looked to be entering her golden years, draped in an evening gown of expensive-looking fabrics, sauntered close with an amused smile. Lydia, Amira greeted, exchanging kisses on each other's cheeks. Kiss, kiss. I'm so sorry that Leo couldn't make it in person tonight. He was called away unexpectedly to London, the woman said. I hope the video message he sent over will suffice for tonight's keynote rather than him speaking in person. Yes, absolutely, and completely understandable, Amira said. And thank you so much for finally agreeing to sit on our board. I'm so happy we'll see each other more often. It only took 30 years, and now our tea times are a tax write-off, Lydia joked. Amira turned to Jason. Jason, this is Lydia LaCroix, the COO of Majori Global. Jason extended a hand. I'm so glad we can finally meet. Leo talks about you all the time. It's nuts that we've never had the chance to meet in person. Lydia returned the handshake, and Jason noted that her hands felt like someone who wasn't afraid to use them for something other than typing at a keyboard. Not a worker's hands, but Hansett liked being useful. The joys of busy people who are good at their jobs, I suppose. And I hear from more than just Amira that you are quite the detective, one of the best in the department, if the rumors are to be believed. Jason felt himself blush. Thank you, ma'am. Lydia gave him a playful, scolding look. None of this formal nonsense. I've written a sizable check. That should buy me some familiarity. A young man in a waitstaff lively approached Amira, tapped her on the arm, and whispered something in her ear. Her face scrunched up for a quick moment, and Jason knew that was her annoyed look. I'm so sorry. I need to see to something. Oh, go. Take care of what you need to, Lydia said, and threaded her arm through Jason's. I'm going to steal your husband for a drink and pretend he's my eye candy. We can finally get to know each other rather than hearing stories from other people. Amira gave a coy smile and signed, laughing. He's only on loan. He's my eye candy. Lydia returned the laughing sign, and Amira melted into the crowd behind the staff member. You know Gapper signs, Jason said, his eyebrow rising. Lydia began to lead him towards the bar. Why wouldn't I? How's your son feeling? He's starting to do a lot better. And I'm starting to get sick. So there's that. Good times. Oh, but earlier today, I suddenly decided it was time to paint the bedroom. So I did. First coat done. This is the way. And I shall never take my helmet off. Yeah. Yep. But he should be able to go to school tomorrow. So that's a win. Jason felt his blush return. I didn't mean any insult by it. I just that most people of, well, us rich folk don't usually speak the vernacular of the poor, Lydia said, her amused smile returning. Jason's eyebrows tried to reach his hairline. I'm just surprised you remember it. My brother and I both believe the only way you know where you're going is to remember where you started, she said, navigating them both through the crowd. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to support your wife's foundation. We want to see more people have the opportunities that we did. It's a shame that Leo couldn't make it, Jason said. I thought he was supposed to deliver the keynote speech. I was looking forward to finally sharing a drink with him. He was not happy about missing tonight, Lydia said. But when you're the CEO of a company as large as Majora, well, even little fires are big. He was talking all week about how you two talk all the time but have never met in person. Conflicting schedules, all that. Sometimes I think both of us wish that Majora didn't require as much attention from us as it does. Price of success, I suppose, Jason said. True, and a tale of be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. So, Leo had to settle for another recorded speech rather than delivering it in person. They'll play it later tonight once everyone is good and liquored up. Speaking of which, they had finally reached the bar, something that the catering company had wheeled in. I can turn a page. I'll have whatever you're having. Jason signaled to the bartender and ordered 2 mezcals. Whatever that is. 2 glasses with clear liquid arrived in short order. They toasted and sipped their drinks. "Why mezcal?" Lydia asked. Jason was confused by the question. Because I like it. "I think there's a lot to tell about a person by their preferred drink," she said. "For instance, there's a saying about mezcal." Oh god. Let's see if I can read this. Para todo mal mezcal, y para todo bien también. Y si no hay remedio, litro y medio. No idea what I just said, or if I even said it. Jason heard the Spanish but didn't understand enough of the words to make sense of it, which must have shown on his face. "For all bad, mezcal, and for all good as well. And if there is no remedy, a liter and a half." Jason shrugged and took another sip. "Sounds about right." "Alexei must have been quite the person," Lydia said, changing the subject. "For Amira to go to this effort to start a foundation in his name, and to see it to such success." Jason nodded, and didn't try to stop the smile that almost always followed the thoughts of his childhood friend. Yeah, he was. The best friend anyone could ask for. "So, you were close with him as well?" Lydia asked. "You knew the twins growing up?" "We were pretty inseparable. They were the only two who never treated me differently." A curious frown formed on Lydia's face, and Jason could sense the question. "I was born with Hawkrim syndrome." Lydia set down her drink and put on a comforting hand on his arm. "Oh dear, I'm so sorry." Jason smiled. "No, it's okay. It's been in remission for years. It's not something we usually bring up. There are new treatments out there that are showing a lot of promise, but growing up, most people, adults and kids, would either treat me like I was made of porcelain or like I wasn't there at all." "But not Alexei." "Nope. He just treated me like a normal kid." Jason felt warm in his chest, and he wasn't sure if it was the liquor or the pleasant memory. "I could never keep up with him. He was a natural athlete, and really good at school, but he never wanted to leave me behind. He would always push me to run faster, to study harder, and he would be with me the entire time. Half the time I thought I was holding him back, but he insisted on sticking with me for some reason." Lydia smiled, a smile that wrinkled her eyes. "That sounds like a wonderful friend, and it sounds like he would be very proud of you now." She downed her drink and signaled to the bartender. While they waited for their refill, she said, "Okay, I need my sponsorship money's worth." Jason gave her a questioning look. "If I'm going to be on the board, I need to be able to bring in the money from other donors. To do that, people need to connect with the foundation, and more specifically to Alexei himself. People don't donate with their heads, they donate with their hearts. So give me something that will tug on the heartstrings." Jason nodded along with her logic and thought back. He had so many great memories with Alexei. "Okay," he said, settling on one. "So, Alexei and I were walking home from school one day, and I wanted to stop off and get some candy from the corner store. But it had some peanut butter and chocolate things that none of the other stores carried." "Reese's?" Lydia asked with a smile. "I love those." Jason returned the smile. "Yeah, those, but there were these older kids that hung out in front of this place that always gave little kids a hard time. And we were like 8 or 9 at the time, but I was like, We can outrun them or something stupid like that. So we go to the store, I get my candy, and on the way out, one of the other kids starts following us down the street, telling me I needed to give him my Reese's. So we start running, but the kid catches up to me, and he grabs me by the jacket and tears my UV gear right off, and he yanks me around. And then he smacks me in the face, and my cycler goes flying off and hits the pavement and smashes to pieces. He paused at the memory of how his skin immediately felt like it was on fire, and his lungs felt like he was inhaling broken glass. The next thing I know, Alexei has tackled me to the ground and is covering me up as best as he can. And he starts doing that buddy breathing that you learn in school, you know, where you take a breath and hold it and share your cycler. And he's doing this and kicking at the other kid who's still trying to steal my candy or my change or whatever, just taking shots at his knees. I think one of them connected, because the kid went down and was crawling away in tears. But Alexei stayed there, covering me and buddy breathing until someone called emergency services and they came and got us. He remembered Alexei stopping by every day after school for the week he was at home, recuperating from his sun poisoning, bringing Jason his schoolwork and helping him with it, and playing video games when they were done until dinner time. Lydia tipped her glass to Jason. That's perfect. We should all be lucky to have a friend half as good as that. I have zero doubts that he would be proud of what you've done with your life. She finished her drink and glanced over Jason's shoulder. He turned and saw Amira approaching, waylaid by another donor. I've stolen you long enough. It looks like your wife needs a break. She swiped her phone by the payment terminal and keyed in a generous tip for the bartender. Should I let Leo know you'll be calling tomorrow? Jason reflected on his day and tried not to linger on the horror show of the lab or let his discomfort show on his face. He hoped he was successful. Yeah, it'd be good to talk to him. Well, I'm glad we finally met face to face. Leo and Amira both speak so highly of you. I felt like I knew you already. She kissed him on the cheek. Thank you for the drink and the company. Lydia patted him on the arm and casually melted into the crowd. Jason finally noticed the ring of people hanging in their periphery, no doubt curious as to what a titan of industry and a lowly police lieutenant would be discussing, and politely waiting their turn to curry favor with Miss LaCroix. With the distraction of her company gone, and left to his own devices, the earlier memories crept in from the margins. He quickly downed his drink and contemplated ordering another, but decided against it. Speaking of a drink, I'm gonna take a drink. Yes, indeed. Whew. All right. Amira sidled up next to him. Hey there, cowboy. Talk about anything interesting? Oh, you know, nothing much. I was telling her about Alexei. She studied his face, the same lips twisted to one side, the same lips twisted to one side look that she said she knew he wasn't telling her everything. That's it? Yeah, he said. Amira continued to study him. Something's bothering you. I had to see a murder scene where we can't even identify the bodies through DNA testing because the remains look like they were pushed through a push through a meat grinder. It's nothing. Just work stuff. You know you can tell me about it, right? Amir said and rubbed his arm. No, I can't. It was a rough day. Nothing I want to load you up with. Ooh, yes, ooh. That's what you missed. That's what you missed in the first two chapters. Amira held his gaze for another moment, then turned and leaned her back against the bar. Good turnout tonight. Jason grunted his agreement. This will go a long way to funding the Foundation's endowment, she continued. And it's nice to know that there's a lot of generous people that believe in its mission. Jason snorted before he could catch himself. Amira gave him a look. You have something to say? Jason pursed his lips. Nope. You don't agree? She crossed her arms and stared straight ahead. I think their generosity is directly proportional to how much they can write off their taxes and assuage their guilt for being total assholes the rest of the year. The words poured out of him. You moron, way to ruin her night. Amira shook her head. You're just a cynic. You see so much bad every day that you can't see good when it's right in front of you. Jason choked back a rueful laugh. Are you kidding me? He pointed to a man in a black suit. That guy? He owns a laundry in the Eastern Gaps. We staked him out when the task force started because the business was used as a depot for moving the chemicals needed for splice manufacturing. His house is the size of an airplane hangar. Pays his workers a quarter of minimum wage. We busted him for trafficking, and he didn't spend a day in jail. He pointed to an older woman in a red dress and a ostentatious scarf wrapped around her neck. She's a partner in the accounting firm that does the books for at least a dozen different shell businesses used for money laundering. We got her dead to rights on at least 20 different tax and embezzlement charges. And what does she do? Liquidates the firm, declares bankruptcy, and testifies against the firm's supervisor, acting like they were the sole operators. He subtly gestured to all the attendees as they continued drinking, laughing, and talking, seemingly without a care in the world. I have zero doubt that I couldn't swing a dead cat in here without hitting someone who has committed fraud or violated a half-dozen federal trade and drug statutes, and not one of them has had to face consequences other than a fine that they probably used as a tax write-off. Amira nodded. Maybe. Remember what my dad always said? You use the tools you have, even if they're rusty. These people may be privileged jackasses, but they also gave the Foundation a ton of money. We can use it to maybe undo the damage and make things just a little fairer. Just a little bit. Jason nudged her with his elbow. Looks like I'm not the only cynic. Amira sighed. I guess not. I just want to believe that people can be better. I get it. I do too. Jason's shoulders slumped. I just don't want to get caught up in the machine, you know? Everything is tilted in their favor. And a lot of that is because people let it be that way. Hell, sometimes with my work, I wonder if I'm part of the problem. Amira let go of Jason's hand and put both of hers under his jaw. Hey, look at me, she insisted, and Jason looked into his wife's soft brown eyes. She lowered her voice. You'll never be like these people. Never. Jason placed his hands over hers. How are you so sure? Because we've known each other since we were 5, and I've never known you not to do the right thing. I don't know anyone who is as sure of who they are in the world as you are, even if you don't see it. Because you didn't grow up rich or strong or with any edge over anyone else. You have had to work for everything you have, harder than most, and you never take it for granted or miss an opportunity to offer a hand to anyone else in the same position that you were. Amira smiled up at her husband. Because I love you. I have to go, y'all. Have a good night. Thanks, Kay. Take care of yourself, please. Jason smiled a crooked smile and kissed his wife. Love you too. He wrapped his arms around her. Do you know I still get warm and tingly when you're near me? Oh, really? Amir said with a sly smirk. Yeah, he said. Want to get out of here? But they didn't. She threw him up on the bar right there, and the whole place went woo. No, I'm just kidding. That was the end of the chapter. Oh, my right nostril is stuffed. Stuffed, I tell you. So, what do we think so far? How's the book doing? How's the story going? They've uncovered the splice haul of a lifetime, it seems like. Street value of $200 million. There's a insane, gruesome murder. And there's a kid missing. A little boy who should have gone to school but didn't make it. Of course, I have wondered, and I'm sure you have too, is he part of the meat grinder of bodies in the apartment? Sure hope not. But I guess overall we'll have to find out what happens next time. I don't think, based off of, let's see, 60. Well, we might be able to do it. Do you want to hear one more chapter? I think we could squeeze one more in, based on its length. Oh, the tea, so good. Sure, you just want to find out what happens after the fundraiser event. I know how your brain works. Is it liberty? It is not. It's English breakfast. Oh, man. I really hope I don't wake up a miserable mess in the morning. I would shook. We just got a contract for a client, and it's going to be a big implementation, and guess who's in charge of it? This guy. So I need to be on my A game. All right, chapter 5, page 60, exclamation point fall, by the way, for this book. Here we go. The blast of hot night air hit Jason in the face as he affixed his cycler, Amira doing the same. No sun meant no need for UV protection, but the air was still the equivalent of sucking on a car's tailpipe. Lovely. "Shall we?" he said through the external calm in a mock posh accent. She offered his arm to his wife. "We shall," she replied in the same manner, and laced her arm through his as they made their way down the museum steps. While the day's heat still lingered, as it often did, a slight breeze carried through the tall canyons of glass and steel of Center City, and down the long stretch of park and parkway that led to the Arts District. Jason's hair mostly stayed in place, but a lock of Amira's broke free and across her face. Jason gently moved it away as they strolled down the avenue towards their townhouse. The city always seemed to come alive at night. The gargantuan sun squares glimmered far overhead in the moonlight. Their flashing lights to worn-off aircraft blended with the few stars visible in the near-constant haze that clung to the streets and buildings. More people filled the streets, unafraid of the oppressive sun now that it lay far beyond the horizon. Vendors with pushcarts filled with everything from food to tourist chicoches? Touristy stuff. To daily sundries, made their way up and down the streets, hawking their wares, calling out to people as they passed. At the same time, musicians and dancers busked on street corners, filling the night with a chaotic, electronically distorted soundtrack of life. Jason recognized a few of the vendors and nodded, greeting as they passed, the mobile shopkeepers returning the greeting with a nod or a doffed hat, twisting their finger and thumb into a signaled smile. The vendors hurried on their way, intent on making as much as they could in the limited hours that they had in the city center before having to return to the gaps. Jason found it ironic and sad. Gappers were generally not allowed in the city center during daylight hours, but once night fell, they were unofficially welcomed by the Bugari. He had heard something about culture and the heartbeat of the city in a media feed, but Jason knew better. It was a safe version of poverty tourism that let the well-to-do of the city, with their expensive clothing and transparent face mask cyclers, feel like they were living dangerously while staying perfectly safe. It also gave them access to some harder-to-find items that the Gappers would bring. Anything from knockoff handbags and fake IDs to drugs to every conceivable flavor. Were any of those bodies people that were just trying to make a living? Any way they could? Jason knew from experience that the players he came into contact with that were in the game weren't simple caricatures, that the morality of their decisions weren't black and white. Extreme poverty meant people would find any way to get by, and sometimes those methods would get extreme. They were undoubtedly bad people, like the one dealer he had busted who had been essentially holding an entire apartment building hostage as meat shields, so that rival crews and even the police would think twice before going in guns blazing. Jason had felt a particular satisfaction slapping cuffs on that one. Or the chemist known as the pharmacist. He had spent 3 months tracking who had been formulating a more addictive version of just about every drug imaginable to create a greater demand. In the process, he had left a trail of John and Jane Does that OD'd on his concoctions. When Jason busted him, the pharmacist hadn't known a bit of remorse. He even seemed a little impressed with himself. Another one Jason was happy to put away. But then, there were the kids that were acting as gophers for the corner kids, running the individual ampules of splice or tiny baggies of heroin from the stash to the customers, or some of the corner kids who were running the crews, or even the stick-up boys who routinely robbed dealers. Most of them were just trying to make a few bucks when no one else would hire them, either because they were too young or didn't have the skills, or didn't want to work the grueling hours for minimal pay that violated child labor laws left and right. It didn't make it right, and Jason would still do his job, but he at least knew there was a difference between who someone was and what they did, especially when literal survival was on the line. The thought returned to him. Who were the people in that pile of bodies? Did he know them? Were they working in that stash house because they were just looking for a way to put money on the table? Or were they more like the pharmacist, callously trying to build a better mousetrap to ensure more people into the cycle of the drug abuse and addiction? "You're doing it again," Amira said, bringing Jason out of his thoughts and back to reality. "That thing where you get that crinkle between your eyebrows?" "Am I?" Jason said. "Sorry, it's been a long day." Amira looked ahead. "I know you're not all in on the idea of taking some time off," she started, and she paused to gauge Jason's response. He kept his face as neutral as possible and nodded for her to continue. "But I think it would be a good thing. You've been carrying a lot more on your shoulders lately, and it's starting to show." She rubbed his arm. "Even you need a break. Maybe it's time to start looking for something else to do?" Jason took a deep breath and let her words marinate. "Yeah," he finally said. "I know. Soon, I promise." Amira opened her mouth, but Jason interrupted her. "I promise," he emphasized. "Things just got complicated today, and we have a limited time to act on it. But the task force is wrapping up, and as soon as it does, we'll have a serious talk about it." Amira patted his arm. "Thank you. That's all I want." Okay, another break in the story here. Jason awoke to his phone ringing and a hangover. He blindly fumbled on his nightstand until his fingers found the phone and sat up in his bed. The space next to him was empty, and he smelled coffee brewing. He squinted through the lingering sleep to see who was waking him up. The caller ID read Leo LaCroix. "Good morning, Super Cop," Leo's baritone said when the call connected. Good morning, Super Genius Dr. Guy," Jason replied, his voice hoarse from the sleep and mezcal. "Sounds like you had a good time last night," Leo said, and Jason could hear the smile in his voice. "Sorry I couldn't be there. I was really looking forward to finally having a drink with you." "No worries," Jason said, and swung his feet out of the bed and onto the floor. "I think I did enough drinking for the both of us." "What was your poison?" "Mezcal," Jason said, and squeezed his eyes shut to block out the light that set his head to pounding. "I'm sending you something that will help with that," Leo said. Jason's phone pulsed and he looked at the message. "A Bloody Mary recipe?" "Everything you need, nothing you don't," Leo said. "Hydration, electrolytes, B complex, vitamins, and some spice to dilate the blood vessels in your head. And that capsaicin with the hot sauce is also an anti-inflammatory." Jason chuckled. "Well, you're the doctor." "So, hangover aside, how are you, my friend? I feel like I haven't spoken to you in months." The thought of a Bloody Mary gave way to the memory of a bloody crime scene. "Rough, man, it's been rough." Everything okay? Yeah, I don't want to bother you with work crap. Jason ran a hand through his hair and heaved himself to his feet. His head pounded again in protest. Jason, you can't carry these burdens alone, Leo said. Believe me, I know. I mean, my burdens are nothing compared to what you must have to deal with every day. But carrying around that kind of weight, it keeps you from being your best self for you. The people you love, the people who rely on you. Please, you run an international conglomerate. I'm just a cop. Hey, madam. Howdy. You'll be happy to know I'm live on Twitch, Kick, and YouTube, thanks to you. I appreciate it. My biggest issues live on spreadsheets. Yours are in the real world. Don't ever doubt the impact that you have on the people around you. Jason sighed. We had a pretty bad crime scene yesterday, he finally said. Just utter carnage. Like nothing I've ever seen before. I'm having a real hard time shaking the image. Hence the drinking last night? The cat? That isn't usually like you. Jason nodded to no one in particular. Yeah, maybe. He started pulling clothes out of his closet. Howdy, howdy, that's awesome. I'm glad it's all working out. Yeah, it is. It ran perfectly well. Very smooth. That and Swan dumped the homicide on my ledger. On top of the anti-splice task force. Yep. He heard Leo sigh. From what you've told me, that seems to be her MO, right? She's had it in for you since you were given the task force. I think she may get what she wants, Jason replied. There's not a lot I can do. Leo tisked. You can't accept that. You're better than that. I'm just a guy working a job, Jason said. She's got way more pull than I do, and she's not saddled from being the... And she's not saddled with being from the gaps. She gets to make the rules. The woman was born on the third base and thinks she's a triple, Leo said. People like that think they are owed something. And yes, they have advantages, but they also don't know anything about sacrifice. That's your advantage. Leo paused. If I've learned anything, If I've learned anything about you over the years, Jason, is that you're a good fighter. Literally and figuratively. It's how you got yourself out of the gaps. It's how you rose as high as you did as a professional fighter. It's how you've done as well as you have as a police officer. Did I ever tell you why my fight career ended? Jason asked. I only know the story as I read it online, Leo said. I don't think we ever spoke about it, however. Is there more to it than a simple injury? Yeah, Jason said. So everyone knows Derek Belford and I were scheduled to fight. I was undefeated at that point. I think he had maybe 2 wins, 5 or 6 losses. This was an exhibition fight for the IPFC. If I won and put out a good enough show, the possibility was there that they would offer me a contract. You were finally going to make it to the show, Leo said. How did Derek get into that fight with that record? I'm not a huge fan of combat sports, but it doesn't sound like he was very good. He wasn't, Jason said. But Mommy and Daddy had money, and as you know, money gets you many things. I think they sponsored another event and used that as leverage to get him in. But anyway, yeah, this was supposed to be the big break I had been working for. A way out of the gaps. a way to secure Amira and my finances for the future. And then Derek cheated, Leo said. Derek cheated, Jason echoed. But more than that, he had already had gene treatments when he was younger. He was already strong and fast, even if he wasn't a good fighter. And I'd fought with people on Splice before. It sucked, but I still handled myself. Whatever Belford was on that night, I don't think I've ever been hit that hard. If I remember, it was a new designer version of the drug, Leo said. Everyone has tried to replicate the Recombinex formula I developed for years. Legitimate gene therapy is a booming market, but nothing works as well as my formula. All of the different versions of Splice are just failed attempts, and I can't seem to do anything about them, no matter how much I try to shut things down from my end. Well, it keeps me employed, Jason said with a laugh. But anyway, he wins the fight by tearing all of the ligaments in my knee. That would end just about anyone's career, Leo said. Yeah, but here's the thing. I healed up just fine. No lingering weakness or anything. I could have been cleared to fight within a year. But then why didn't you? Leo asked, his voice dripping with curiosity. Because the rules were stacked against me, Jason replied. We found out that the Belford had popped on a drug test weeks before the fight, and the IPFC knew about it. They put the fight on anyway, knowing he was juiced up to the gills. And afterward, there weren't any consequences for him. If any other fighter had been doing Splice and injured someone that badly in a fight, they would never have gotten a fighting license again. But the IPFC signed him to a 5-fight contract, all because his parents had money to make it go away. There was a long pause on Leo's end. So, you walked away. Jason couldn't tell if his friend was disappointed or not. I walked away. I didn't want to have to take performance-enhancing drugs to be competitive, and even if I did, I didn't have the money to protect myself if I got caught. Jason took a deep breath. I was screwed either way, so I decided not to play the game. I filed the negligence suit, got paid, and gave up on that dream. The lesson you took from that was that the rules aren't fair, so why play? Leo asked. Yeah. Jason could almost hear Leo shaking his head. I come to a different conclusion from that story. Remember what I said about sacrifice. Derek Belford is a person who isn't willing to make sacrifices, whether to achieve something or even to reconcile reality with their ego. For instance, what became of Derek Belford after that incident? He fought twice more, Jason said, lost both fights in the first round, got his ass kicked. IPFC cut him, canceled the contract. Parents made more donations, eventually got him the job on a career track. He's actually on the task force. He heard Leo chuckle. He works for you now. Yeah. Yeah, he does. You see, you're a fighter, through and through, and you've earned everything you have. That's worth more than being handed anything in this life. And you're willing to make the sacrifices necessary to achieve what you want. Maybe, Jason said. He's likely to be promoted ahead of me soon, especially the way Swan is constantly gunning for me. And this isn't the kind of fight where I can punch back, literally or figuratively. Why not? Because there are consequences, Jason said. It's not like I can lodge a complaint or hope to get by on my merits. Swan's basically aristocracy. Same with Belford. And Bogari play by a different set of rules, or at least the rules don't apply to them the same way. I found that once you've accepted the reality of the situation, what the facts on the ground are, so to speak, that if the rules get in the way, you simply need to ignore them and make your own. Leo chuckled. But then, I'm also very rich. Or wait, that is Leo. But I'm also very rich, and I sometimes forget that not everyone has that luxury. Completely didn't see who was talking there. Here's hoping that someone can change that one day, Jason said. The rules thing, not you being rich. Leo laughed. Indeed, I quite enjoy it. Well, I should let you go. I'm sure you have to get to work. Yeah, probably, Jason said. He remembered his case with Tommy DeLuca. Hey, before you go, quick question. We had a guy yesterday that was hepped up on some new strain of splice. Dude ran outside with no protection, no mask for close to 10 minutes before he started showing any signs of burning or anything. That's quite the adventure, Leo said. Any idea what could cause that? I've seen people on Splice be outside and act like they didn't feel anything while their skin blistered up, but never where they didn't have a physical reaction. There was a pause from Leo. Theoretically, it could be possible, he finally said. Biologically, we are supposed to be able to go outside and withstand a certain amount of ultraviolet radiation and impurities in the air. It wasn't so long ago, maybe 2 or 3 generations, that people just went outside. I suppose teaching the body to adapt to the current environment would be possible, theoretically. Jason said. This is a new kind of splice, then. Without more data points, I couldn't say, Leo said. But keep me in the loop, and I'll let you know if I come across any research from my competitors. As I said, gene therapy is an attractive field. Plenty of people are playing in the market. Thanks. I appreciate it, Jason said. And thanks for listening. Again. It's what friends are for, Leo replied. And Jason could hear that his smile was back. Being rich has many advantages, but friendship isn't one of them. I truly treasure yours. Be safe, Jason. The call disconnected. Jason wiped a layer of hangover sweat that had collected on his forehead and decided that a hot shower was exactly what he needed. That, and a Bloody Mary. Boom, look at that, 9 o'clock on the dot. Did I say we had enough time, or did I say we had enough time? Nailed it. This Leo guy sounds like quite a character. I don't know why I gave him that voice, but I did. Considering I gave his wife a similar voice, I guess it only makes sense, right? Oh, but I tell you what though, my throat has had it for today. It's probably a good thing that those episodes I was recording are done because my throat is getting scratchy. I need a good night's sleep, some Airborne, a massage, some more Airborne, maybe another massage, and someone to do all of my work for me. That would be good. All right. Kidding aside, though, I really love spending time with you guys and gals, and just, you know, sharing a story. I'll be curious to see where this goes. We don't really have any momentum in the case, which is the meat of this book. So I'll be curious to see if the next chapter actually, continues on with that. It has a slow momentum, but we shall see. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I'm just saying what it is. All right, let me take a look and see who is online. Whoop, whoop. All right, we've got... Boy, we got a lot of people online right now. Ba-da-ba-bum. There's a person we haven't raided in a very, very long time, and they are a huge book reader. I swear they read like 50 books a week. It's ridiculous. They're not reading a book tonight. She's playing a game. But we never really get the opportunity to raid this person. So, if you'll stick around with me, let's go say hi to Moog. Moog. She'll be surprised. Thank you again for hanging out. Thank you for listening to my scratchy voice read a story. On a serious note, I hope you're able to fight off the illness. Thank you. I appreciate it. No one likes being sick. But yeah, we'll be back on... What is today? Today's Sunday. We'll be back on Thursday. More of this book, and then of course, Fourth Wing in Stunts Discord. Until then, as always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and have a wonderful night.